for the one click. Yes. Okay, guys, I have the honor of starting the presentation. Last time I was 1 minute late, so I didn't even see that my name is also down there. I also already told them why. I mean, you guys do all the work. So my whole contribution is in kicking off this session. So who of you guys attended last time? I think maybe there's something. Oh, almost everybody. Yeah. Okay, but I see a couple of people that didn't attend the previous session, but don't worry, there will be a short recap of what was discussed previous time. Short recap, because then we'll dive into the actual use cases in the industry. So I'm really looking forward to this next session. So, Abdel.
Yes, all right. So, welcome everybody again. Good to see the many people from last time today as well. So, hereby is the agenda for today. We'll do a brief blockchain technology recap from last time, and we will also introduce a new concept of a new basic of blockchain technology that we need to introduce today in order for you to understand a bit more some of the use cases we're going to show to you. After that, we will illustrate some problems and challenges that we came up with from our internal research within Greenhouse Group and also from our desk research in labs, and how blockchain companies try to develop solutions for those problems that are emerging within the advertising industry. And eventually there will be a Q&A session, of course, for any doubts you may have. So first of all, these are the 5 basics of blockchain that we discussed last time. So it's hashing, it's immutable ledger, decentralization, consensus, and cryptocurrency. I'll just go briefly through them. So for those who were last time, they can refresh a bit their mind. There's quite scary words still. And for those who weren't the last time, they can kind of get a grasp of what blockchain technology is. And then I'll introduce you to a new concept later on. So first of all, this is hashing. Hashing, as I said last time, is it's a kind of digital, a fingerprint for digital documents. So it's a unique 64 digits number that's assigned to a digital document and uniquely identifies it. Why do we need hashing in blockchain technology? We need it because the blocks are linked together by the hashes. So the hashes provide the link between one block and the other. Each block receives its own hash, and within each block, you also contain the hash of the previous block. By this way, every time you do some change in a block, this hash change, and since the hash of this block would change, also the hash of this block would change because they're linked together. So a change in one block would disrupt the whole blockchain. That's why it's called a blockchain. This particular feature, this link between the blocks, makes this characteristic to the blockchain, which is the immutability. So the blockchain is defined as an immutable ledger. Last time I made an example of if you buy a house and you have a contract saying that this is your house, and this contract gets lost or it gets stolen or someone tampers it. This could happen in the normal world because that would be the only proof that you actually have owned the house. While in a blockchain, if your contract would be included in a block, once you do any change to this block, the hash of this block would change, and change the hash of this block would cause this block refers to the previous one by using this block's hash. This would change as well then, and this would change as well. Imagine if there are 1,000 blocks, you would need to recalculate the hash of all these blocks. That would be almost impossible, not impossible though, so you could still give it a try. How blockchain makes it impossible? By making it decentralized. So, as you can see, there are, as I told last time, there are this blockchain, like the single version of truth is copied all over the participants in the blockchain network. So by this way, there are hundreds of thousands or even millions of copies of this blockchain. And as soon as someone makes a small change, these computers are constantly checking each other. All the participants are checking for each other and see whether they hold the same version of truth. If someone's blockchain is changed, because for instance, someone wants to get a contract of his house or something like that, this person would have to need to change also half of the computers in the network because you would need a majority because the majority of the computer determines which chain is the right one. In this case, there are only 5. Imagine if actually it is, when there are millions of computers, this becomes impossible. Nobody ever hacked a blockchain, like Bitcoin blockchain, for instance, or yeah, nobody ever hacked the technology. They hacked the people using it, maybe because they didn't take the right measures. But the technology, so far, it's safe. In order for these different people, these different computers to talk to each other and have an incentive to actually check whether this version of the truth is the right one, so for people to actually participate in this blockchain network, we needed a consensus algorithm, and last time I described to you the proof of work, which is a kind of reverse lottery, where you know already the winning ticket and you just try to get this number, but the only way to get there is just buying random tickets, one after the other, until you can finally get the right one. In the blockchain, you continually try to create a new block, given a specification. Like for instance, this case, you have to create the orange block, but everyone knows you have to make an orange block, everyone knows the price of the lottery, but nobody knows how to make this orange block. You can only do it by randomly trying every time. And why would someone ever do that? It's because the person that actually makes it, actually the person that randomly manages to get this orange block would get paid for it, would get a reward, which is a cryptocurrency, which is the word that I think triggers many of you, like you've heard of it. And in this case, it's Bitcoin. And as a cryptocurrency, also last time we said it doesn't have an intrinsic value, it doesn't have a physical form, and the supply of it is not determined by a bank or a government or whatever. It's written in the code that is developed, that created this cryptocurrency. So that was quite fast and I guess quite a bit confusing recap, maybe, but I just like last time session, of course, it took us half an hour to explain this concept, so I hope it kind of refreshed your mind. Today I'll introduce to you a new concept, really briefly, because there's a whole session on this topic, because it's really interesting. You can talk 1 minute, as I will try to do on this topic. As you could talk an hour about smart contracts, or even more. So we need this concept because today there are some use cases that use smart contracts in order to work and to use the power of blockchain. So for this reason we thought, okay, let's just give a primer on it. Okay, we'll start with an analogy. Well, hopefully simple analogy. So that's a vending machine. So what's the link with the smart contract? So without you knowing, we have been engaging in something like a smart contract for a while. And these are the vending machines. So what is a vending machine? Basically, every time you go and buy something from a vending machine, you kind of an agreement between you and her, let's keep it accurate, between you and the machine. Which is as follows. If I give you, for instance, if I need to buy a Diet Coke and I put 2 euros and 40 in it, you give me a Diet Coke. If I give you less money than that, you don't give me the Coke. If I give you more, you give me the Coke and some change. This is just like, you put the money and you're sure that you're gonna get your price, so that you're gonna get your product. And you have this kind of agreement with it. However, this is kind of the concept that stands behind smart contracts. Because after all, what is this kind of agreement? The agreement you have with a vending machine is nothing but a set of rules. Just a set of very simple rules. Like in this case, if money are received and you press Diet Coke, then release Diet Coke. That's a pretty simple rule. And these simple rules are defined and enforced by the vending machine in this case. Imagine then a smart contract as a kind of set of rules which are written and enforced, but not on a vending machine, but on a blockchain. So it's just a set of rules that you define with someone, and this set of rules is enforced not by a lawyer, not by another person, but rather by the actual code, rather by the blockchain itself. So this makes them smart because they can enforce by themselves. They don't need someone to say, hey, you do this or do that. But I'll put this analogy further, and I make a more blockchain example of what a smart contract is. So imagine this is Bob. Bob wants to go to New York on holiday. So then he goes to the website. He just Googles like house in New York, and find that Jenny, this girl, actually has a house in New York and can rent it to him. So what normally people would do, they would just go to Airbnb or Booking.com, and they will make an agreement on, I give you this amount of money and you give me your house for a week or something. But this thing brings, of course, some intermediary cost, and there will be, in case there were some litigations between them, like the house is not actually how it was, or the money you gave me are not actually the amount that you promised me. You would have to go to court. You would have some problems, some issues. Like it would take you a lot of time. So what they decide instead is to write this agreement into a smart contract. The smart contract is as such. Jenny would provide Bob with a code of the door of her house, because there it's a really smart house, so to get in, you just need to go like here at Greenhouse Group. And in exchange, of course, Bob will pay for the house. But how do we know that once he got the code, he will pay for the house, or how do we know that the code that Jenny gave was correct and what is wrong, and maybe he already paid for the house? How can we make sure that these two people can trust each other without an intermediary, which would be the others I mentioned before? In order to do that, they decide to put this smart contract on a blockchain. In this case, the contract is inside the blockchain, as I told you before, and as you know already, I hope. It's immutable. This contract becomes like set in stone onto the chain, and so it cannot be, the rules that they set together cannot be changed. For instance, one rule could be if the code is right, if the door code is right, give the money to Jenny. If the code is wrong, give the money back to Bob. Then they both read this set of rules, they sign it, like they sign it digitally, and it's set. They don't need any lawyer, they don't need any intermediary. So let's say, so then they put this thing inside the smart contract, so they put inside the fact that she would give the code and that I would give money. Let's say the code is right, so Bob puts the code on, the code is right, then the deal is true, and she gets the money from the smart contract, and he gets, and of course, he gets the house, let's say the code in this case. In case it's wrong, then what would happen, basically the smart contract, one of the rules of the smart contract in this case, as we said before, would be that if the code is wrong, don't pay for the house. And so Bob would get back his money, and Jenny would get back her faulty code. Oh, yes. Is it clear? Is it kind of clear for you now? I hope. Of course, there will be a full session on this because it's a very interesting concept and it's an evolution of the first blockchain technologies we know. It's the second step after Bitcoin. So it's a concept that can really bring a lot of application, a lot of interesting things both in digital marketing, both in general in the industry. So for this reason, we want to discuss it really later on. But these things are happening inside some of our applications that we're going to show you today. So here we go. These are our now six basics of blockchain. Hope they're clear for you now. Let's go on. Now we have this technology. We have this wonderful blockchain technology that I just told you before in one session and a half. But what can we do with that? For instance, what can we do for Greenhouse Group, or what can we do for the digital marketing industry? That's what we asked ourselves. So we started conducting some research within the company, or also we did some desk research, or we had some academic articles, in order to understand what was happening in the digital marketing industry and which problems could be tackled by blockchain. We interviewed quite some people, and we annoyed some of them, but they didn't answer us, but yeah, it's fun. and eventually, from all the different departments, and yeah, after the news of a couple of days ago, it became easier it became way easier to structure than what we did before, because for us it was a mess to know who to talk to. And so, yeah, after this series of problem identification session, we identified 4 main issues, let's say, that we think are, to a certain extent, relevant for the digital marketing industry, and at the same time could be tackled by blockchain technology, and currently many projects are trying to do so. First of all, it's brand trust. So brand trust, they say that only 48%, according to the Edelman Trust Barometer, only 48% of the general population in the United States in 2017 trust brands. What does it mean? Like in this particular case, it means that people do not think that brand shows integrity in their behavior. So like they claim to do something, but then when nobody's checking, they're just doing something else. Or that they're not transparent about their practices. And in general, people do not have anymore these feelings that brands can give them a source of, that the brands are trustworthy because of many scandals that happened before as well. So this is a big problem, and as brand trust is eroding, this is like a worldwide trust crisis. This is a big issue for brands because they're seeing the profits, of course, eroding as their trust is declining, and brands take years to build this trust, and this trust is being broken by the malicious behavior of some of those brands in the industry. So that's the first problem we identified. Second problem is intermediaries, which I probably know you heard of. For every euro, it's according to the Forest Man report, for every euro you invest in advertising, so every euro that advertisers put, they only get 0.44 eventually that gets as pure value, and that it's actually spent in order to really reach the consumer at the last stage. Why? This happens because there are many intermediaries, and as you probably have seen this picture already, I think, is the Lumascape. And there are thousands of intermediaries. Some, of course, are adding much value, like Green and some maybe, and while some are just doing some, they're just in between taking a share of the money that is being spent and not providing much value. And this is a big problem because publishers need to pay. Publishers do not get rewarded enough for the content because much of the money that advertisers spend get lost in this process. While at the same time, also advertisers are spending a lot of money. They are spending a lot of money to reach the consumers, but some of those remains kind of trapped into this kind of puzzle. Of course, some are worthy, some are not, but it's not really clear even now what are the actual fees that are being subtracted from the initial investment. So this is a big problem that we heard of. Another problem is the duopoly. The background didn't go well here. It's the Google and Facebook mafia, so to speak. And of the $88 billion that have been spent in 2017 in digital advertising, 90% went into Facebook and Google's pockets. Would that be a problem? I mean, why? I mean, maybe they're just doing their job really well. The problem is that the growth in size of these two parties is actually leading to a kind of, it's leading to several problems to both publishers and advertisers, because they're becoming kind of the gateway through which everyone needs to pass every time the publisher wants to reach, the advertiser wants to reach the consumers, and so on. And what's happening is that Google takes for instance, Google takes a 32% share of every ad on AdSense that publishers are showing. So when a publisher is showing an ad, they take a 32% share, which is quite large. And while this may not be a problem for publishers that can actually get a large audience and are really large, this can be a problem for smaller publishers because they do not have the means to actually profit from it because they still have a limited audience. While at the same time, also for advertisers, advertising and spending are like, let's say Google and Facebook can dictate the rule of the game and can just request, and they can just make sure that the advertisers need to pay more in order to have their ads shown. And it's not also really clear, it is clear but not extremely clear how real-time bidding works exactly, or how, in this case, performance is measured, because they have their own proprietary softwares, and they can just say, yeah, your click-through rate was that, but what do you actually mean by that, or what actually metrics are you using for that? They own those platforms, those analytic platforms. So of course there's little you can do, and that's of course a big problem. The development of this duopoly. Last but not least, data misuse, and of course you probably all know about Cambridge Analytica, which happened around the 2014-2016 because it was right before the American elections. When they actually used this data. And so the data on 87 million Facebook users was collected, by an app which was developed by Alexander Kogan, a Cambridge professor, and he just shared this data, which was fine. Like he could collect this data because he did it through an app, like a personality test app. However, the problem was that then this data was used by this party, Cambridge Analytica, which used then this data for political behavior such as trying to influence Brexit vote or American elections. There was a public outcry, of course. Mark Zuckerberg had to testify at the Congress, and 81% of Facebook users say they do not trust the platform, as according to Business Insider 2018. And also one of the most looked up words on Google after this happened was how to delete my Facebook account. So that was a big issue for Facebook in this case. But in general, people, after this data misusing or data breaches or leaking, are not trusting anymore that much that their data is being controlled by a third party. They want more transparency, want more control on how their data is being collected, for what reason, and how. GDPR recently can help, but it's still a big challenge for many people. Now, I'll give the stage to Bogdan, and we'll introduce you some blockchain solution to this problem.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. So, I'm going to try to give a bit more context to the problems that Filippo presented to you by showing you some use cases of some companies and tech that tries to solve these problems using blockchain, of course. So, the first one that has been mentioned is brand trust. And the problem here is that you don't really know that what the brand is advertising to sell is really selling that. So if you go into a store and want to buy a bag of coffee beans, and they say they are organic, you don't really know that they're organic or not. You can't track it, you can't check it, you just choose to buy them or not. And a use case that could solve this problem is VeChain. They are aiming on tracking all the supply chain of a product and putting it on blockchain. So each product would have a unique RFID identifier, and at each step that the product is manipulated or moved somewhere or transported, that RFID is scanned and tracked into the blockchain. So it's going to be there, no one can modify it, and end users and stakeholders can audit it and save it. I'm going to show you a small demo, no, not a demo, a presentation of VeChain.
Advances in cold chain transportation have connected us to a global web of fine delicacies. Quick delivery sounds like a simple mission, but every step needs to be perfectly calibrated to ensure customers get the freshest products. Oh no, an order of oysters has spoiled. What's going on? Was it the storage temperature? An issue at source? The driver? VeChain's cold chain logistics solution uses proprietary IoT sensors to track key metrics such as temperature, humidity, and location information throughout the entire journey. At each checkpoint during transit, data captured by the IoT sensors is uploaded to the VeChain Thor blockchain. If the food temperature falls or rises, the VeChain Thor blockchain platform will automatically trigger an alert. Data is cryptographically secured with a timestamp, so nobody can change the data without leaving a trace. VeChain creates an immutable record of the product for regulatory authorities and customers to check. VeChain sits in the background, ensuring customers get their fill of fresh foods and more. VeChain embeds data management and sharing in every process, making cold chain logistics transparent, regulated, secure, and reliable.
Yeah, sorry for the Chinese subtitles, only version we found. So let's take the example of a piece like of a pork, a pig, actually. So let's say the farmer first has to register that pig in the blockchain, just say it's existed, where it's coming from. Then when it goes to the quality check, someone checks the quality of that pig, is healthy and everything, then it registers that into the blockchain. It gets to the distributor, that step is also registered into the blockchain, and then to separate retailers. So let's say Albertine and Jumbo and others. As you can see, each step is recorded in the blockchain this way, and the end user can just scan the RFID on that product and could see where that product has been from. So he can see the distributor, who has checked it, and where does the original pig come from, let's say. So how does blockchain power all this concept? As I said, by registering each step into it, it makes it immutable. So the companies can't change what has already been registered there. They can say that the pig comes from Netherlands instead of France, or it's always there and no one can change it. Each product is separately trackable from the origin to the end user. So yeah, let's give an example. Who has been to Italy? Yeah, have you tried tasting Fanta there? Have you noticed that it tastes different from? Yeah, it would be nice to know why it tastes different there than here. Like there you could check it and see where the oranges come from or what has been processed before, all those things. And yeah, I mentioned the immutability already. The next one is data misuse. So the problem here is that, sorry, yeah.
I have a question on the brand trust, because how do you know for sure that they are gonna register the right information? How do you know that the farmer is not gonna say, no, the pig was born yesterday?
This is kind of called the oracle problem. Like, how do you make sure that the people who's putting that information are honest and have their interest to put the best information?
That's the whole issue, right?
Yeah, that's the whole issue. As you've seen in the previous video, VChain tries to solve it by using IoT devices, Internet of Things. So just sensors that could check the temperature, for example. Temperature is an easy thing to do. You can just put a sensor there and you can have the temperature constantly checked on each step and see if it hasn't been put in a hot place, a pig or something like that. But for more complex things, yeah, there's a need of an oracle. And they're still looking to solve this problem. But generally, you would try to find a person who has no stake in putting the wrong data in it. So definitely not someone from the company should put that data into the blockchain, but somewhere else, like, I don't know, the guys who check the quality, or, yeah.
But yeah.
Best use case would be sensors and things that work automatically.
But as a thing, you could practically now they can do RFID tags for that. You could actually make an RFID tag that once the pig is born, of course, with the time when the pig is born, it's hard to determine exactly the time, but you could determine the location of where the pig was born, of the farmer that had this pig, because every farmer would have his own RFID tag and stamp. So then you can really know which farmer had that particular pig, where in which location it was born, and also when. Hopefully it's the right date, but the rest it's hard to modify really like easily, because every farmer would get his own RFID tagger that can actually keep this information. And even pigs could be tagged now. The RFID technology can be extremely small, even invisible almost, so that even a living thing could have it. They're doing it with fish already.
It sounds way more hackable than the thing you said last week or 2 weeks ago. Like, okay, at least 50% of all the data has to be the same, otherwise it's not true.
It's actually more complicated, and in the smart contract session we are going to talk specifically about this problem, because this is a problem of the smart contracts. That's really there.
It's a very valid problem, and people are looking into solving it, but not yet. We're gonna get on that fourth session, I think. Yeah. Sorry.
Just a short question.
Yeah.
Do you have any idea if this has actually increased brand trust? Because I can also imagine that a lot of people think, well, I don't know exactly what blockchain is, which makes it even a more black box.
Yeah.
To make people even more like, okay, what is this really? Do you have an idea or no?
No, I
Could
don't.
use the same as when you call someone to Australia. How do you know how your phone is calling that other person? Do you know the technology behind it or not?
Yeah.
You just use it because you're used to it. So that's what we hope blockchain technology will be. It's powered by blockchain, but
It shouldn't be promoted as something that works on blockchain and you should trust it because it's blockchain. You need to explain properly to the user, and then maybe he will be able to trust it properly. Anything else? Yeah, go on. Data misuse. So as Filippo said, a lot of companies have been trusted with user data. They used it the wrong way, and now users no longer want to share their data, no longer trust them with sharing their data because they're afraid they're going to misuse their data again. So how can you solve a problem like this? One way to do it is give the users control back to their data. So let the user give permissions to who's accessing his data and reward him for sharing his data. This is what Battery aims at doing, which is an app that consists of a data wallet and a marketplace. In the data wallet, you store your personal information and what you are willing to share with different companies. And in the marketplace, companies can post requests of users to share their data. So I'll show you a quick screenshot. This is how requests would look like if a company like to put one. So they have to specify the age range, the sex, location, and what kind of data they are looking for. In this case, they are looking for the interests and the data of any person who has an interest in computer science, computer programming, development, or guitar playing. They can post this request on the marketplace, and then the user can access that request and authorize this specific company to access their data. In this case, the name, the address, the email, and the phone number are requested from the company. He has some privacy settings in which he can set data that he never wants to share with someone, data that he only likes to share but when it's requested, or data that company can he just gives them for free, or not for free. He just allows companies to use it in exchange for an incentive. The incentive in this case is a token, a cryptocurrency that has some value. On the left side of the screen, you can see an overview of all the companies that this specific user has shared his data with. Right. So it's Amazon, Testine, Receipt, VLD, CoinDesk, and next to them are how many tokens has he been paid for his data. So he can see how much has he earned for sharing his data, and who has his data, and how are they using it. So how blockchain powers this use case? As I said, gives back the power to the user. Now the user knows exactly who has his data, how are they using it. He can manage it, and companies can collect data from their target groups. So they would not just collect all the data, but just the data they are looking for. As you've seen before, these characteristics like the age range, the sex, the location, and the occupation. Okay, next one, the duopoly. So as Filippo said, the problem here is that the big giants are kind of eating the profits of the small publishers, or just kicking them out of the market. And a project that looks on solving this problem is the Brave browser with the basic attention token. I'm not sure if you heard of it, but it consists of a browser, which is called Brave browser, and its token is cryptocurrency, the BAT, the basic attention token. The browser has a functionality in it, something like an ad blocker. It allows the user to block all the ads and rewards the publisher for their content and the user for their attention. How they're doing it? I'm going to show you in a second. There's a quick demo. But here, as you can see, this is the Brave browser. There's the Brave icon there up, and the shields are now up. So no ads are shown on this site. That means that it acts basically just like an ad blocker for now. You can see how many ads are blocked, scripts blocked, or cookies tracked, everything that happens on your web page. But then publisher gets no money from ads, and yeah, he can't live like this. If you choose to block ads, but you still like the articles that publisher posts, you can donate bad tokens and bad coins to him. For example, through the preference page, you can select a monthly budget for donations. In this case, it's 25 bad coins, and they are allocated based on the time spent on different publisher websites. So in this case, you can see that bostonglobe.com has the bigger share of the bad coins because the user has spent 18 hours and 29 minutes on his website during the last month. So instead of paying the publisher with ads and data, you just pay him with tokens and you enjoy the ad-free experience, theoretically. Yeah, this doesn't work right now. So yeah, there are some problems with it. I'm going to show you a quick demo of the Brave browser. Let's see if I can. Yes. Yeah, as you can see now, the shields are down, and there are ads on the website. This one, for example, or the one up top. If you click the icon and choose to turn the shields on, acts like an ad blocker and blocks all the ads on the website. Yeah, here you have an overview of the total blocked ads, who has placed them, what cookies have they been tracking on their website, and yeah, you can choose different preferences based on your privacy options. Okay. So now I enjoy the website without ads, but the publisher gets nothing out of it. So let's say I read this article, I really like it, and I would like to reward the New York Times for this article. I can choose to send them a tip. In this case, it's gonna be 10 BAT, which is equivalent at this point to 1.5 USD. And they get the BAT tokens in their account now. So yeah, this is how the Brave browser works. How blockchain empowers it, it allows micropayments, micropayments of BAT tokens that can happen instantly and automatically. The last one, the intermediaries. As Filippo said, in this industry there are a lot of intermediaries, everybody's thinking it's cut, and everybody's looking to go through as little intermediaries as possible and not go through intermediaries that don't add value. So AdShares is a project that aims to eliminate one intermediary in this whole chain. It's a centralized market for programmatic advertising. The publishers sell their ad space through this marketplace, and then the advertisers buy directly from this platform. So who they're aiming on cutting, I'm going to show you a video and then I'll tell you later.
Day-to-day handling of huge amounts of money flowing through the online advertising market can be overwhelming. Most transactions involve middlemen, which not only increases expenses, but also causes delays in the process itself. However, small publishers and new channels of promotion are often excluded in such a scenario. Luckily, AdShares, the new P2P platform, has been created to address that. With AdShares, purchasing and selling of advertising takes place in a direct way, which is transparent for both parties involved. The advertiser uses the blockchain platform to forward the advertising material. define its parameters, and how much they are willing to pay. The publisher is free to select any of the available ads to meet the individual needs of their portal, website, or blog. The AdShares platform is capable of supporting hundreds of thousands of similar transactions, forwarding offers in a fast and trouble-free manner. Only a small commission is charged by AdShares. This means more savings for the advertisers and bigger profits for the publishers. The commission revenue goes to the owners of AdShares tokens. Purchasing a token is all you need to participate in profit sharing. Don't hesitate and invest today. The more items are sold, the higher the token price.
Yeah, propaganda. So this is how this whole industry, how the industry works right now. So the advertiser goes to the digital agency, and the digital agency buys space on publisher websites through third parties and third tech parties, as far as I understand. Who they're aiming to replace? The digital agency. So they say that the publishers can post all their free ad spaces on the blockchain in the marketplace. Then the advertisers can just place their ads directly on those ad spaces through the marketplace without the need of greenhouse group. How the blockchain powers it? They aim at cutting the middleman that takes a share of this profit. They promote direct communication between the publisher and the advertiser, and they want to, this way small publishers can also join networks and sell their ad space. Okay, yeah, that was it for the use cases.
Now we have the thoughts.
Yeah. Do you have any questions or? Oh, yeah,
no,
we'll discuss them later.
first,
Yeah.
So in general, what we tried to do today was not like a sales pitch for blockchain projects, because we're also quite, sometimes we're quite doubtful about whether they actually would work or not, or whether what they're trying to tell you it's workable or not. And if we can go to the next slide. This is a picture from Never Stop Marketing. This is the blockchain marketing technology landscape as of Q4 2018, so it's pretty recent. As you see, there are hundreds of projects, not even thousands, and many of them, most of them, you've never even heard of them. Why? Either because they're not solving a problem, so they're just being created as a way to just ride the blockchain hype, or they can actually be that still they are in the process of developing their product. However, what we encountered when we tried to find this, when we tried to find for this solution, when we tried to start reading into, like really scanning many of these projects, we found that some are not really clear, provide with an explanation of what they want to do and how they want to achieve what they claim to achieve. So the ones you saw in this session is the ones we actually found that were sort of, for us, they were quite, let's say, solid in their proposition and the way they presented. But still, yeah, the most solid. This industry is still, like this field, blockchain marketing is still really immature. It's like it's a small kid that's just running around but doesn't know where to go. And we'll see where it goes. So I guess that was it. Yes.
Yeah. Questions? About the project, about the smart contracts, about the recap.
So could like any device, any old laptop run a blockchain technology effectively?
In what
Let's-
sense? Like,
Let's take the last product, the ad space buying.
yeah,
Like, do you need to have a high quality laptop in order to?
no. So it's not the user who requires the whole processing power, but as Filippo said at the beginning,
Back in time.
I put a picture of it. Wait. Yeah, it's before smart contracts, right?
Yes. Okay. Let's start the presentation again.
Yeah, this one. So these are the guys with high processing power, the guys who are mining the blocks and who have the consensus. The user and the one who uses the app and all the use cases that we mentioned before are just generating data that is being added to the blockchain. So he has no need for high computational power or complicated devices. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Yes, please.
What's the incentive for people to check, because on cryptocurrency I understand that they can get some cryptocurrency of course, but what's the incentive for other products to check the blockchain?
Like any project specific that we mentioned, or just general
For
ones?
example, I'm not sure what the project was, but for the pig.
For the pig, yeah. So can you repeat the question again? What are the incentives?
What's the
for?
incentive for people to check the blockchain?
Just to make sure that what they're being sold is really true. So in the case of VeChain, the user would check the whole blockchain to see that the product that he has or he has bought is really what it's been advertised to be.
But I think he's saying more, how wide would someone do this thing?
You have like millions
put
of people
together.
just checking the blockchain.
Oh, check, yeah,
it's the
I understand that.
creating.
Yeah, like this game. Yeah, as Filippo said, they're being rewarded with a coin in this case. But yeah, in the VeChain, I'm not sure what's the incentive there.
No, but that one,
Different project is different consensus methods, but each of them has some kind of incentive for people to check them and validate their data and add them properly to the
So it's
blockchain.
mostly cryptocurrencies that's the reward for people.
yes, they are created for that. But like the very last example, ad shares, as you saw, in that example you get like if you have tokens of that currency, you receive a share of the commissions that are being generated in every transaction. So by this means, you know, of course, people that actually like in that case, it's the only people that actually interact with the blockchain, and then can earn these tokens. And by earning these tokens, they for instance earn a share of the commissions, even though they're not even in the industry, they're not even doing this advertising. They just get a token. Like, of course, the value goes up the more people they're using it. So they also hold that.
Then you are creating new intermediaries.
It's only one. The thing is, in this case, would be only one, and would claim only 0.01% of what the publisher pays. That's what they claim in their.
This is not a project that has been launched, or
It's the best we found on the topic.
What they're saying that they will do.
So yeah,
So-
they're claiming that.
Yeah, there's a long way to find out if it really works or what will be the benefits.
And the other question?
Other questions?
Oh, you, yeah.
Oh, yes, sorry. I was just wondering, why do people give bar to the advertisers, to the case of the bar? What was it, bad?
Yeah, it was bad.
Bad, sorry, bad.
Oh, better. Okay, yeah, okay.
Yeah, why would people give bad to advertisers? If they just block it, then why would they still give money?
No, not to advertisers, to publishers.
To publishers, yeah.
Yeah, because, I mean, okay, the problem is as follows now. Now they have people with, I don't know, Google Chrome, and they install an ad blocker and they just browse the web because they're sick of advertising. They just don't like it. But at the same time, maybe they would like to just keep flourishing the publishers they are following, or they still like the internet field, or your publishers to still start writing articles, provide, like, I don't know, for instance, provide you with premium content, provide you high quality content. How can you, today, there's little way you can do it, or if you, I don't know, if you subscribe to our website and you pay like like for instance to New York Times, you get premium articles, but you have to pay a quite large fee, and that goes on every month. But what if you only want to read one article, for instance? What if you only want to read just a piece, but at the same time you want to keep this running? You could be still the bad guy and download Brave browser, block all the ads, and just not contribute it to anyone. But the thing is, of course, this is not like, of course, this will be the same experience as before. What they give you now is an experience in which you would not see ads, but at the same time, you get the chance to still reward the people, like the publisher, or it could be also a YouTube channel that you really like. You could just contribute to that channel without seeing ads before, because it's getting really really granular. Like you can even just support that particular YouTuber. We tried, for instance, today. You could do it, or you could support just a particular creator within a website. So it's a way to make this process, which now would be really troublesome. And I mean, if you make a transaction in euros, it would be pretty expensive, and you would pay transaction fees. In this case, you just, as you saw, just one click, and you send it.
I would add that in order for this to work, the user needs to understand that everything that he's browsing on the internet is not free, and he has to pay somehow. It's not going to work now because probably he doesn't understand that. He just wants free stuff, but yeah.
One side note. Okay, this is phase 1 of Brave. We didn't talk to you about phase 2 because it's not on yet. But the phase 2 that they're aiming at is, so basically your data, your browsing data, it's only stored in the browser. It's stored in the Brave browser. It's not on your Google account or on your Facebook account. It's all in the browser. What they want to achieve is in the future to actually start giving out Brave ads, which are let's say approved by Brave, and you can then you can opt in to see only Brave ads. And when you see a Brave ad, every time you see an ad, you get paid, and the publisher and you get paid for it. So also the user would get paid because they gave attention. That's why basic attention token. They gave attention to that particular ad. So by this way, just by being on the website of the publisher, you would just contribute to him without actually paying him directly. At the moment, though, they still haven't developed that phase, so now they're just doing this voluntary disclosure, voluntary giving. So 2 people? 3?
If you, in phase 1, if you make a payment, normally the advertiser has paid the money, but now you blocked out the advertiser, so there's no income. Does it mean that like the amount you pay is it coming from the user's bank account? Theoretically?
And right now, yes, some are given for free because a part of the Brave Basic Attention Token were already, when they wrote the code, were allocated to you just to give out to users to increase adoption. But yeah, at the moment, of course, if you want to give more than what they give you, they think they give you like
25 something.
25 VAT, so I don't know how much euro it is now, but not much. You have to buy them. It's more, then it becomes more a donation to this publisher.
Yeah, because that's really right now the beauty is that the user gets to use it free, and he pays with behavior instead of actual money, and that's ruled out again.
The problem is that now many people are just blocking the ads. They don't want to see the ads. What they want to do is give an incentive to people to see the ads in the future once we get to phase 2, and make a healthy internet experience, so to speak. Yes.
Yeah. I had a question about the second example, about the platform that collects data, where you can say like, just use my data. But then you say, okay, you can use this data, and then what? The companies, they can't find you, so they can't show you a specific ad, so what's the use of giving my data? I can just say, hi, I'm a male, hello.
Maybe this is not 100% for advertisers or for ad companies. They say in their project that it's also, right, they say it's for ad and publishers and digital companies. But yeah, as you say, doesn't really make a lot of sense. But for research topics, or if you just need to gather a lot of data, not for advertising, but for other purposes, yeah, that works better.
But I think it will also work because if you want to quantify how big the audience is, let's say you want to find how many 25 years old people living in Eindhoven that like skiing are, you just post this ad and like, okay, please shout out, how many are you? And then you could actually see how big the audience could be. Of course, you would need a wide adoption. So the whole Eindhoven was using it.
You don't know evolution, right?
No, but you know they are. You know they are there. It's more like, you know, to get to know. You have, of course, then you have data. You don't know exactly who belongs to which, but you know that this audience exists, and you may develop something on it, or you may develop even a product out of it. Yes.
Yeah, so obviously it does need a wide adoption, but they make more sense that it fits the third problem, because that's basically what Google and Facebook do, right? They collect a huge amount of data without you knowing it that they collect data. So that would be a competitor to Google and Facebook, in my opinion. You know, they have like a third platform which has all the data, and the user is
Yeah, but I think in the case of Facebook, for example, all the data is centralized, so Facebook has all the data.
That's the case.
In that case, it's not the app and the platform who has data. It's the user who has it and chooses to share it with a specific company.
Yeah, exactly.
But the platform doesn't hold that data.
No, but
They just make the connection.
But that's fair. But you can filter it. So I want to know all the users which are like in a certain segment. Like we're even looking for new television, for example. If that's the data which.
Okay.
Oh.
Yeah, then it also works on Facebook.
With all segmentation, and then you can actually have even more interesting data than.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's a cut we didn't take into account.
Yeah. Maybe this is why this project is not. You haven't heard of it yet.
Yeah, so I was thinking if you combine it all, so I disclose my data, then in return I get relevant ads and higher discounts. So the advertisers are happy and you still have advertisements. So the publishers are also happy. So then everybody is happy and you have a blockchain about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what many are trying to do.
Yeah.
Okay, let's pitch it. Okay, I think that's it. Thanks a lot for being here. We hope to see you next session.